Okay, hi again. This is part two of my testing the equipment to see if it's adjusting. There's some problems with the audio, and I'm hoping the software will sort of adjust itself. And I'm using USB now instead of Wi-Fi, so let's see if it comes out better. Okay, so I've made several videos where I talk about how the original initial existential question, which we continue to make, but primarily we made which we considered very significant, it seems, by the way our literature indicates in civilization, was very important at the start of civilization when empires and great countries or great civilizations were starting to build, and their um, deities, their relation to the supernatural and all these aspects was so important to them. Understanding, we still, of course, have posed ourselves this question. Sounds a lot more banal now, like what are we, or who are we, or where do we come, and compared to uh, the importance, the significance of this question and from the ancient world, during the ancient world. But nonetheless, most what we believe and all the things that all the literature and beliefs that we have passed down through the centuries and through generations were majoritatively, or most of it was established long time ago in its essential starting platform, um, starting questions, the starting initial original question, which I talk about in other videos, which is, how can it be? How can me, having a sense of my so willful determination to evolve and survive and continue going forward as life, not raised um, to question or second guess the reason, simply to thrive forward as evolution would have its life forms continue to produce life forms, and all of us go forward. Suddenly faced with the self-affliction of our own intentions, which originally were meant to assist our forthgoing and the forward direction of evolution, end up attacking or hurting or destroying ourselves. And this naturally provokes irremediably, unavoidably, a question of sourced in the disbelief and the non-acceptance of our center, or our forthgoing single will to evolve and continue going forward, which does not accept, does not understand, cannot see how that was possible, that it occurred. So that's the first question that arises from our existential condition. And I explained in other videos that we have learned to because we need to answer that question. We need to answer all questions that are important to us. We answered it by explaining it as coming from the outside. In other words, this contradictory paradigm was the intention of external forces, of God, creators, that have later become different types of more sophisticated explanations and religious beliefs, and have echoed through the millennia as even when the question is always with us, because we're never okay with it, we continue to be shook by something that is unacceptable, cannot happen, is not something that evolution and forthgoing, thriving will of life can reason, can incorporate into its acceptance in any way. It may produce it in small expressions, things that end up not satisfying or agreeing with its design intentions, let's say. But they're so small, they're not comparable, they're not equatable to a challenging existential scale and so whereas something that would outright destroy a whole life, a whole living being, by is sort of not reasonable. Now, it happens, for example, in the animal world, but the animal world is not so in tune with this intellectual depth of contemplation upon our existence, which is right next to the awareness of the imperative will of evolution and forthgoing that life and defines us existentially. So, in other words, we made a decision, and we still make it every day, actually, when we don't realize that the condition is simply that we cannot balance and harmonize our very very developed intelligence with the intent of the natural mind and the design of nature and our bodies. And so, since we never learn to just accept that and start from that point dealing with this perpetual condition of unbalance and instability, and just simply start from there, becoming our solutions and our reasoning, becoming the fruits of an awareness that stands on this first initial base of existential consciousness, conscientiousness, and awareness. We started on, instead, a different premise. We started on an external explanation that says it was a will or something that we can't do anything about. It was God's doing, and that created also, even in among atheists, many atheists simply believe they're bad people, or things will have to, war is necessary, or you need to have a gun, perhaps they believe, or that bad people will be born, and some people are just bad, and Hitler is bad, and Kennedy was good, and so we are the way we explain the world, even if you're not religious, because of so many generations of layering beliefs and explanations about civilization and people and society, which, yes, stem primarily from this original, more religious questions of ancient literature and ancient beliefs passed down, honing a reasoning mind in human beings that sees our our condition as an oscillation between good and bad. Bad is basically what attacks evolution, which does not actually exist, because evolution and life, the life force, and the force and the will of the light and the warmth of stars that pushes forward evolution and life forms on planets, is not does not factor in an enemy. It just goes in a big way. But because we explained our condition, our existential condition, as something that is described as the relationship between something we don't understand, that simply has made this suffering or this betrayal occur, and trying to fight that, in other words, trying to resist it. We have created a condition, a comprehensive because we answered it as a question. We answered the question, comprehensive condition of a battle between good and bad, or destroyer and builder, life giver and destroyer, right? And then all of our literary sciences stem from that. In I don't know, in what do you call it? People, tarot cards and astrology, that whole area. We talk about in Hindu religion. We talk about the destroyer. Life exhausts. An earthquake is not a destroyer. An earthquake is a exhaustion of force, of resistance. And so the fault slips. And yes, that causes rocks to fall, but it's not intending to destroy anything. Earthquakes aren't. It's part of the solidifying of the earth, or what have you. But because we have started on this belief that it's all about a bad versus good, destroyer versus builder, everything that we think and talk about, and all of our institutions, all of our laws, our ways of judging people and understanding how to, how to build country and what is important, and how to raise our children, everything stems from this question being answered that way, instead of being answered as simply the condition that we are in, which is one in which this body, this sort of half animal physiology, has to handle the immense capacity that is beyond its own nature of thinking, that is our human intelligence, which is we end up not knowing how to drive it, how to handle it, how to use it towards what evolution would certainly have preferred us to use it for, which is the survival of the species, and that means the survival of the whole species. Clearly, our civilization demonstrates that we do not know how to use our intelligence for that. It's all about controlling, dominating, beating, destroying, robbing. We're not, in short, we don't know ourselves as a species. We haven't seen ourselves yet. We haven't seen our true predicament, our situation as an integral species on this planet, as a whole species, as a being on this planet, and what condition we have to deal with as a life form, which is different to all other animals because of this enormous intelligence we cannot drive without harming us, or so anyways, that's what basically humanism helps us understand, is not that there is no God. In fact, it does seem like it was intentional that we have this intelligence, because it is like a gift. It is what any creature on any planet would want to have in order to not suffer the predicament of physical existence, vulnerable to disease and weather and I don't know, whatever other natural sufferings bodies, species, life forms have to face. With this intelligence, we could create an amazing world that tends to these the fear that was installed by the suspicion, the fear, the desperation, the tendency to betray, to run off with the goods, sort of say that the majority of evolution that has honed the nature of this body and the physiology of this brain has limited us to. With this intelligence, we can save ourselves from all those things that we fear, and yet we have never. All we've done is basically create an expression of that more primitive mind, which is suspicion, fear, need for power and domination, and deceit and betrayal, and so we use that intelligence to help us survive, but according to the ways that primitive brain thinks, not according to the realization that we already are saved, in a sense, that we already can see ourselves and can do something about ourselves in a way that natural evolution without the help of creators would have had, or not had rather. And at the same time, so it doesn't deny God, obviously, but it does propose a different notion of God, completely different, that we've never thought of, and it's totally okay with not including that belief in God and not developing. It can totally be understood and saving, releasing, freeing of our predicament, predicament is actually a grace, a fortune that we have this intelligence, or saving from what would have been our natural primitive existence, without needing to do something about the awareness that there is a God creators. We don't necessarily, they're probably not expecting us to thank them. Maybe it'd be nice, I don't know. But that's the wonderful part, is that it's about making our world truly the expression of our optimal maximum capacity, and doing something for ourselves that we never have so far. We've never been able to free ourselves from, because we've never been able to free ourselves from the primitive limitations of and using that brain, that intelligence, according to those the instructions, the guidance, or the will. I can't find the right word, of those fears, those suspicions, those insecurities from the primitive mind. And so our world is all about having more power, having more suspicion, more ways of controlling, based on what? Based on insecurity, based on not trusting, based on not trusting comes from betrayal. And so the world has been defined by these plays between emptiness and progress, and at the same time trust and suspicion, or wanting to control and dominate and oppress, enclose, cancel out, suppress, and then wanting to run with our capacities of intellectual capacities, but conditioned by this primitive mind, not conditioned by the first step of whole realization realization of wholeness, meaning we are all the same. We are one species, and we start as at the point of the equality of 7 billion people, not separations, nowhere. You know, that there are things that can more specifically describe. But if everything had been built, I'm kind of losing my track here, but I just wanted to see how this other segment came out, because I tried a few adjustments. But basically, yeah. So yeah, how to teach it, how to teach it, and how to awaken the beautiful power of this realization onto those who are making and running and changing and building the world. In the past, religions have always done this because, well, let's see. In the past, moral sector or capacity of leadership, which has been spiritual or religious, has conditioned our intensely, because we have become better at that. Before it was even worse. We're even more brutal, more animalistic towards one each other, with this high intelligence that we possess. And so what happens is the question provokes an answer that explains why it happens, but it also, the original question, the one that cannot accept and that does not understand a betrayal against a forthgoing single-minded will of evolution. The question was answered with saying, well, something has done this to us, so we made God that, instead of realizing that God maybe simply only gave us something as far as we need to be concerned. He may have his reasons, they may have their reasons. But what's important to us is that what they gave us is an amazing gift, so that we don't have to suffer what any other living, natural, sort of, more primitive creature, living form would have to live, like other animals do in this world. But so that question was answered wrongly, or maybe because we weren't capable yet of conceiving even that there would be living, conscious, intelligent beings in other worlds. Now we finally can say that scientifically without needing to prove it. We don't need to. I find it interesting that you still see programs where NASA presentation scientists that say, to find life, to know if we're not alone, to see if there's others. We already know there are. We have all the numbers and the statistics of cosmic conditions that by simple fact that one planet has us, all you have to do is the math and know that not only must there be the possibility, could we be a unique creation, who knows, but not only must there be the possibility of thousands of others, millions of others, or however many similar to us, life forms in other worlds, but beings that are for the planetary conditions of their solar systems, and how much more ancient and how much more abundance of whatever elements or conditions define the evolution of the life forms on that planet, are much greater living beings, in the sense that we consider a dolphin greater than a mouse, for example, than us, which then, and thousands of those. And so, which then unequivocally, which then certainly gives you the realization that we are an intention. This is intentional. This is, just all we have to do is look at ourselves. What are we doing? We're trying to look in other worlds, and it's us being the little mouse of cosmic evolution that we may be, are already like, well, what are we going to do when we find life on those other, are we going to introduce ourselves and look at how we treat each other? Most likely, we're going to start wanting to manipulate them, let them look at them before they know we see them, just like we are to one another here. And so far, so far. And so it stands to reason that so would they, unless they had a bigger, more beautiful idea, which is to have us discover it on our own, and discover that they're there, and discover that, start going to look for them with thankfulness instead of with this primitive human mind nature. So I got lost again. So one question was that, what answered, and later, and then the question also produced a lot of more elaborate, I got lost. Okay, anyway, so this was a test. I just wanted to see how it came out. Thanks for listening again.